What happens when a royal sits down for what should be a friendly chat, only to find themselves under fire from questions they never saw coming? Today, we're diving into the explosive interview that had Prince Harry walking off set, leaving Jennifer Hudson and her entire studio audience in complete shock. This is a story about boundaries crossed, tempers flared, and the moment when even royalty reaches their breaking point. Make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below, because this gets intense. The studio lights were perfectly positioned. The audience was buzzing with excitement, and Jennifer Hudson was radiating her usual warmth as she settled into her chair. Across from Prince Harry, what started as routine pleasantries quickly took an unexpected turn that no one in that room could have predicted. "Prince Harry, it's such an honor to have you here," Jennifer began, her smile genuine and welcoming. "I have to say, you look great. How are you adjusting to life in California?" Harry leaned back slightly, his posture relaxed but alert. "Thank you for having me, Jennifer. It's been quite the journey, honestly. California has been good to us, a fresh start in many ways." "That's wonderful to hear," Jennifer nodded. "Now, I have to ask, because I think everyone's curious, how different is your daily routine now compared to your life in the UK? I imagine it's like night and day." "Well," Harry chuckled softly, "I actually get to drive myself places now, which might sound silly, but it's something I cherish. Taking my son to school, picking up groceries, just normal things that most people take for granted." The audience murmured appreciatively, and Jennifer smiled. "That sounds lovely, actually. And speaking of family, how is Meghan handling everything? The transition, the media attention, all of it?" Harry's expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. "Meghan is incredibly strong. She's been through a lot, as you know, but she's focused on our family and the work we're doing through Right, Arcuel," Jennifer said, leaning forward. "Tell us about that. What are you most passionate about with your foundation work?" "Mental health advocacy, supporting veterans, fighting misinformation," Harry replied, his voice gaining strength. "These are issues that matter deeply to both of us. We want to make a real difference, not just talk about making a difference." Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. "Those are important causes. Now, I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me being direct, but there's been a lot of speculation about your relationship with your family back in the UK. Some people say you've burned bridges. Others say you're trying to build them. Where do you stand on that?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Harry's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and he took a measured breath before responding. "Jennifer, I think it's important to understand that family relationships are complicated for everyone, not just public families. We're working through things privately, as families should." "I respect that," Jennifer said, but her tone suggested she wasn't done. "But when you and Meghan did that interview with Oprah, you made some pretty serious allegations about racism within the royal family, about lack of support during Meghan's mental health struggles. Do you stand by everything you said in that interview?" The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Harry's hands, which had been resting casually on the armrests of his chair, now gripped them slightly. "I stand by my truth," Harry said carefully. "I stand by my wife's truth. We shared our experiences, our reality. That's all we can do." "But surely you understand how damaging those accusations were to the monarchy's reputation," Jennifer pressed. "I mean, we're talking about claims of racism against one of the most respected institutions in the world." Harry's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Respected by whom, exactly? "Jennifer, with all due respect, I think you might be operating under some misconceptions about what that institution actually represents to many people around the world." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the light-hearted celebrity interview they'd expected. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "I'm not trying to be confrontational, Prince Harry, but I think a lot of people would disagree with that characterization. The royal family has done tremendous work for charity, for the Commonwealth, countries, and I'm not dismissing that work," Harry replied, his voice rising slightly. "But you can't cherry-pick the good parts and ignore the problematic ones. You can't talk about the Commonwealth without acknowledging its colonial history. You can't praise the charity work while ignoring how the institution failed to protect my wife from racist abuse. But don't you think," Jennifer continued, clearly not backing down, "that by airing these grievances so publicly, you've damaged not just the monarchy, but your own family relationships. Your father, your brother, people you grew up with. Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The sudden movement sent a ripple of shock through the studio audience. "I'm sorry, but I need to stop you right there," Harry said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "This isn't what we discussed. This isn't what I agreed to." Jennifer looked genuinely surprised. "Prince Harry, I'm just asking questions that I think the public wants answers to. Isn't that why you're here? To have an honest conversation?" "Honest conversation. Yes," Harry shot back, "but this feels more like an interrogation. You're not asking questions, you're making accusations, and asking me to defend myself against them." The camera operators were frantically adjusting their angles, clearly sensing that this interview was spiraling into something much more dramatic than anyone had anticipated. The audience sat in stunned silence, watching what felt like a car crash in slow motion. Jennifer held up her hands in a gesture that was meant to be calming but came across as condescending. "Prince Harry, please sit down. I understand this is emotional for you, but these are legitimate questions that people have. Legitimate according to who?" Harry demanded, still standing. "You're sitting there acting like my family's pain is some kind of entertainment for your audience? Do you understand what it's like to have your wife driven to the point of having suicidal thoughts because of media harassment, and then have people question whether that's even real?" The raw emotion in his voice was palpable, and several audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jennifer's expression softened slightly, but she didn't back down. "I'm not questioning Megan's mental health struggles," Jennifer said, carefully. "Mental health is incredibly important, and I've been open about my own struggles. But what I am questioning is whether the way you've handled this situation has actually made things better or worse for your family." Harry finally sat back down, but his posture remained rigid. "How exactly should we have handled it, Jennifer? Should we have just stayed silent while tabloids published lies about my wife? Should we have just accepted that she was being treated differently because of her race?" "But that's just it," Jennifer replied, leaning forward again. "You keep talking about racist treatment, but many people don't see it that way. They see a woman who married into the royal family and then complained when she discovered that royal life comes with restrictions and protocols." The words hit Harry like a physical blow. His face flushed red, and when he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Are you seriously suggesting that my wife was just complaining about protocols when she told us that members of my family were having conversations about how dark our son's skin might be?" A collective gasp went up from the audience. Jennifer's eyes widened, clearly not expecting Harry to be so direct about the allegations. "Prince Harry," she said, her voice measured, "that's a very serious accusation to make without providing specifics. Who had these conversations? When did they happen? Because without context, it just sounds like hearsay." Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Hearsay. This is my family we're talking about. Jennifer, this is my son. You think I would make something like that up? You think Megan would?" "I'm not saying you made it up," Jennifer replied quickly, "but I am saying that maybe there's more to the story. Maybe there was context you misunderstood, or maybe someone's words were taken the wrong way." "Oh, so now we misunderstood racism?" Harry's voice was getting louder. "Is that what you're telling me? That when my family expressed concerns about my child's skin color, we just didn't understand the context?" Jennifer realized she was losing control of the interview, but instead of pulling back, she doubled down. "What I'm saying is that families have complicated conversations, and sometimes things get misconstrued. Your grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, she loved you deeply. She welcomed Meghan into the family. Don't you think it's possible that whatever conversations happened weren't coming from a place of racism but from legitimate concerns about how the media might react?" Harry stared at her for a long moment, his breathing shallow. When he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "Did you just suggest that my family's racism was justified because they were worried about media reaction? Did you really just say that?" "That's not what I said," Jennifer protested, but Harry was already shaking his head. "No, that's exactly what you said. You just suggested that it was reasonable for my family to be concerned about my son's skin color because of how the public might react. Do you understand how insane that sounds?" The studio was dead silent, except for the hum of the cameras. Jennifer looked around nervously, clearly realizing she'd stepped into dangerous territory. "Prince Harry, I think there's been a misunderstanding. She tried to backtrack. I was simply trying to explore different perspectives on what might have happened. Different perspectives on racism. Harry stood up again, this time more deliberately. Jennifer, let me ask you something. If someone in your family expressed concerns about how dark your child might be, how would you interpret that? What perspective would you explore? Jennifer stammered. Well, that would be different because ... Because what? Harry cut her off. Because you're black and I'm not. So somehow, the racism my family directed at my wife and son is more acceptable. Is that what you're trying to say? No, absolutely not, Jennifer said quickly, but the damage was done. Harry was pacing now, his composure completely shattered. This is incredible, he said, running his hands through his hair. I came here thinking I was going to have a conversation with someone who understood what it meant to face discrimination. And instead, I'm being lectured about how maybe my family's racism wasn't that bad. Prince Harry, please, Jennifer pleaded. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to have a balanced conversation about a complex situation. Balanced. Harry whirled around to face her. There's nothing balanced about racism, Jennifer. There's nothing complex about protecting your family from it. And there's certainly nothing balanced about sitting here while you minimize what my wife and son have been through. Jennifer took a deep breath, clearly trying to regain control. Look, I understand you're protective of your family. Any good husband and father would be. But don't you think that maybe, just maybe, some of the challenges you faced could have been handled differently? Without the public interviews, without the documentaries, without airing family business for the whole world to see. Harry stopped, pacing and fixed her with a stare that could have frozen water. So it's our fault for speaking out about racism. It's our fault for refusing to be silent about abuse. Jennifer, I thought you of all people would understand what it means to find your voice and use it. I do understand that, Jennifer replied, but I also understand that sometimes speaking out comes with consequences. And maybe those consequences affect more people than just you. What consequences are you talking about? Harry demanded. Jennifer hesitated, then plunged ahead. Well, your grandmother passed away shortly after all of this became public. Your father was dealing with his own health issues. Your brother was trying to manage his royal duties while dealing with family drama. Don't you feel any responsibility for the stress this might have caused them? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. For a moment, Harry looked like he'd been physically struck. His face went through a range of emotions: shock, hurt, and finally, pure rage. Are you blaming me for my grandmother's death? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than if he'd been shouting. Jennifer realized immediately that she'd gone too far. No, Prince Harry, that's not what I meant. I was just suggesting that maybe the timing of everything was unfortunate. The timing was unfortunate. Harry's voice was getting stronger, more dangerous. My grandmother lived to be 96 years old. Jennifer, she died peacefully, surrounded by family. But you're sitting there suggesting that me speaking out about protecting my wife and child somehow contributed to her death. I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. Jennifer tried desperately to backpedal. No, I think I'm interpreting it exactly right, Harry shot back. You just suggested that I'm responsible for causing my family stress by refusing to stay silent about racism. You're essentially telling me that I should have just let my wife suffer in silence to spare everyone else's feelings. The audience was completely silent, many of them looking deeply uncomfortable with the direction the interview had taken. Some were actually getting up and leaving their seats. Jennifer looked around nervously before trying one more time to redirect. Prince Harry, I think we've gotten off track here. Why don't we talk about something more positive? Your children, perhaps. How are they adjusting to life in America? Harry stared at her in disbelief. You just accused me of contributing to my grandmother's death, and now you want to talk about my children? Do you think I'm going to sit here and give you cute anecdotes about my kids after what you just said? I didn't accuse you of anything, Jennifer protested. I was asking legitimate questions about choices and consequences. Legitimate questions. Harry was back on his feet, and this time he looked like he had no intention of sitting back down. Jennifer, let me tell you what's legitimate. It's legitimate for a husband to protect his wife from racist abuse. It's legitimate for a father to want his children to grow up without being subjected to the same toxicity. It's legitimate for someone to speak their truth, even when powerful people don't want to hear it. Jennifer tried to maintain her composure, but her voice was shaking. Slightly. Of course, those things are legitimate. But nothing? Harry cut her off. There is no but. You don't get to minimize racism and then hide behind journalistic integrity. You don't get to blame victims for speaking out and then pretend you're just asking hard questions. Prince Harry, I understand you're upset, but I think you're overreacting, Jennifer said, which was possibly the worst thing she could have said. Harry went completely still. When he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. I'm overreacting to you suggesting that my family's racism wasn't that bad, to you implying that I'm responsible for my grandmother's death, to you minimizing my wife's mental health struggles, which part of that should I be reacting less to? Jennifer looked around the studio desperately, as if hoping someone would rescue her from the situation she'd created. I think there's been a misunderstanding about what I was trying to say. No misunderstanding, Harry said firmly. You've been crystal clear. You think I should have stayed quiet about the racism my family directed at my wife. You think I should have let the media destroy her mental health without speaking out. You think protecting my family somehow makes me responsible for other people's problems? That's not fair, Jennifer protested. Fair? Harry laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that my wife was driven to contemplate suicide because of harassment? Is it fair that my son will grow up knowing that his own family questioned his worth because of his skin color? Is it fair that I'm sitting here having to defend basic human decency to someone who should understand exactly what we've been through? The raw pain in his voice was unmistakable. Several audience members were wiping away tears, while others looked angry at Jennifer for pushing him to this point. Jennifer made one last desperate attempt to salvage the interview. Prince Harry, I know this is emotional for you, and I respect your passion for protecting your family. But surely you can understand that your decisions have had ripple effects that go beyond just you and Meghan. Harry shook his head slowly, a look of complete disgust crossing his face. You know what, Jennifer? You're absolutely right. My decisions have had ripple effects. Speaking out about racism has made some people uncomfortable. Protecting my family has inconvenienced some very powerful people. Refusing to be silent has disrupted the status quo. He started walking toward the edge of the stage, and I'm proud of every single one of those ripple effects, because the alternative was watching my wife suffer in silence while pretending everything was fine. The alternative was raising my children in an environment where their worth was questioned because of their heritage. Jennifer stood up quickly. Prince Harry, please don't leave. We can finish this conversation. Harry turned back to face her. One last time. This conversation was finished the moment you suggested that speaking out against racism was somehow wrong. Jennifer, I came here with respect for you, for your journey, for what you've overcome. But sitting here listening to you minimize my family's experiences, excuse racism, and blame me for protecting the people I love. I realize I was wrong about you. Please, Jennifer called out as Harry continued toward the exit. Let's talk about this off camera. Harry paused at the edge of the stage. There's nothing to talk about. You've shown me exactly who you are today, and I believe you. The only thing I'm sorry about is that it took me this long to see it. The studio erupted as Harry walked off the set. Audience members were shouting, some in support of Harry, others trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Jennifer stood frozen in the middle of it all, clearly realizing that her attempt to ask tough questions had backfired spectacularly. The cameras kept rolling as chaos unfolded in the studio. But the star of the show was already gone, leaving behind a wake of shocked silence and uncomfortable questions about how far is too far when it comes to holding public figures accountable. And that's the story of how a routine celebrity interview turned into one of the most dramatic walk-offs in television history. What did you think about Jennifer Hudson's line of questioning? Was she justified in pushing those boundaries, or did she cross a line that should never be crossed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.